Spark Business. And many of you might be wondering, what exactly is Spark Business? Spark Business is our dedicated suite of financial solutions, products, and services designed specifically for the business owner to help you manage your finances and get back to managing your business. I'm excited to kick off tonight's discussion. Really excited, as you guys know, we have Bill Rancic joining us tonight, and he's going to be talking about growing your small business and finding success. And tonight's sort of our culmination event here in Chicago. I have a little bit of a soft spot. We started this campaign just over 5 weeks ago around National Small Business Week, and this is our big event, and we're really excited that you guys could join us. This campaign has been designed to really promote, celebrate, and empower local small businesses. And the whole notion is that we want to get together and have a conversation, open up a dialogue, and understand what's most important to you when running your business. We're really excited to do this market by market, week by week. And our next stop is in San Francisco. So if you have any friends or business owners, make sure to let them know to look out for Small Talk Thursday events. We invite everybody, both here in Chicago and those who are joining us via live stream, feel free to join the conversation and share your thoughts, share your personal stories about running and growing your business. And to the extent that you have topics or ideas, we'd love to weave those in to future campaign sort of discussions that we have in future markets. You can use the hashtag #WeWorkAsOne on Twitter to share your feedback, and we'll try to incorporate that at the end of the discussion tonight. For those of you in the room, after the discussion ends, we'll have some refreshments. We have a couple of interesting pop-up experiences here with some tasty treats, so make sure to stick around. Bill will also be here to do a book signing. We're really thrilled that you guys could join us and want to make sure that you maximize the time afterwards. Finally, I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator for the evening. I'm going to bring the experts in to do the moderating tonight. Well-known businessman, entrepreneur, television personality, and philanthropist, Sean Conlon. Many of you know Sean as the co-host of CNBC's real estate investing TV series, The Deed. We're thrilled to have him here tonight to facilitate our conversation. So without further ado, please help me extend a warm welcome to Sean Conlon.
Well, good evening, everybody, and hello, Chicago. Thank you very much for coming along tonight. It's great to see so many new, exciting business entrepreneurs and someday large business entrepreneurs in the crowd. I'd like to thank, obviously, Capital One Spark Business for giving me the privilege of being here tonight, and also to interview an incredibly successful entrepreneur, which you all know. He's dedicated a lot of his life to Chicago. He's a properly true Chicagoan. Obviously, I knew him a long time ago when he started Cigars Around the World, which was a very novel concept at the time, and he turned it into a multi-million-dollar business. He's also found success in his current ventures. He's a restaurateur. He's obviously a real estate developer. He speaks to small businesses, and he'll be very modest about this, but he's a global celebrity, which I can attest to. I've seen it all over the world. And he's here to talk to you all tonight about starting your own businesses. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Bill Rancic. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Sean oversold me a little bit, but thank you for the introduction. And thank you all for coming here to Lincoln Park, and everyone who's at home watching this online, thanks for tuning in. I think we're going to have a great hour and hopefully get some good takeaway. And certainly everyone at Capital One Spark, thank you, because what you do for the small business owner is invaluable, and certainly arming us small business owners with the tools we need to succeed is very vital. As Sean knows, as a small business owner, we play such a valuable role in the community. When you look at the research, the small business owner employs more people than any other sector of business out there. They rebuild main streets. They're supporting the local soccer teams and football teams, and they're really the birthplace of innovation. And when you look at where big business is today, the majority of these big businesses started out as a small business. And you can go on Apple, I mean, I can go on and on, but they started out in a garage or in a basement or an apartment. And the fact that we're here tonight to help foster that and help grow that, I think, is very important. So I want to give a round of applause to everyone at Capital One Spark.
Thank you, Capital. Okay, so I'm going to kick off with some questions. Firstly, obviously, would like to know where you started when you first thought you were going to be a real entrepreneur. How early on did you know that, or did you know that?
You know, it's funny. I always joke that I didn't know when I was going to have that desire to be an entrepreneur, but whenever my mom talks about me, she claims she knew that I was going to be an entrepreneur when I was 10 years old. And when I was 10 years old, my mom and dad were heading out of town to celebrate their wedding anniversary, and they were heading up to a town called Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. So it's about 2 hours from here. And they shipped me off to my grandmother's for the weekend. And I wasn't happy about it, but I went. And I woke up Saturday morning, and there was my grandmother in the kitchen. She was making breakfast. And I was a kid who would always ask a million questions, probably like many of you. How does this work? You know, what goes here? Why are you doing that? So I started to inundate my grandmother with all these questions. And she pulled me in the kitchen, and she taught me how to cook. And I spent all day in my grandmother's kitchen mastering the art of making pancakes. I could make blueberry pancakes, banana pancakes, you name it, I could make it. So I went to bed that night, and I woke up Sunday morning, and I popped out of bed, and I ran into the kitchen, and the first thing I did is I picked up her old rotary telephone, and I called all the old ladies who lived in my grandmother's neighborhood, and I invited them to come over for a pancake breakfast. Well, they did, and they loved it. And lo and behold, after they left, I started clearing their plates away from the table, and as I took the first plate away from the table, I saw one lady left a $5 bill underneath her plate. Second plate, another $5 bill. Third plate, another $5 bill. And I thought, I'm onto something here. So I took all that money and I put it in my pocket, and I went back home, and I kept my mouth shut. Right? I didn't say a word to anybody. And I went to school that week, and Friday afternoon the school bus dropped me off in front of my house, and I went blazing in the front door, demanding that my mom take me to my grandmother's for the weekend. Well, this went on for the next 5 weekends, and my mom couldn't quite understand this new relationship that I had formed with my grandmother. I suppose I should say partnership. And then my mom was in my room one day, and she was putting something in one of my drawers, and she made a rather interesting discovery of her own. She found a stack of $5 bills in my sock drawer, and any mother out there would have probably had the same reaction as my mom. She panicked, and she immediately sat me down and demanded to know where a 10-year-old boy was able to come up with all this money. And I had to fess up, I was running a makeshift restaurant out of my grandmother's house. So she quickly put that business to an end. She claimed I was taking their Social Security checks on these weekend ventures, jokingly. But that was kind of my start. And I think I realized that being an entrepreneur or being able to create your own destiny was important. But I think the one thing that I learned is that you have to be able to recognize an opportunity and seize it. And when I was in college was really when I had kind of a transformation. My buddy Jerry and I opened up a boat wash and wax company in New Buffalo, Michigan. And my parents were both educators, so their friends were mostly educators. So those were the adults that were part of my world. It was the people my parents hung out with. And we opened up this boat wash and wax business, and it was where all the rich people from Chicago would go on the weekends, and they had boats there. I think you actually had a place there, the rich guy, Sean Common.
Pre-2009, rich, yes.
But for me, it was interesting because I got to meet a lot of people who had had a tremendous amount of success as small business owners. And I was washing their boats, I got to know them, and probably 3/4 of the way through that first summer, I realized that they were no different than me. They worked hard, they had an idea, but most of them didn't go to fancy schools or have these impressive pedigrees. And I kind of adopted the why not me mindset. And those summers I spent washing and waxing those boats really had an impact on my life because I realized that I could do it too. And that was kind of my start.
So obviously Bill Rancic, as I said, is incredibly successful and
again,
all over the world.
The brakes.
This is the point I have to make. When I said he's globally acknowledged, my sister did not believe I knew him. So when she came to Chicago, I had to borrow him to take a picture. And then I'd not called my godchild in Australia for 10 years. I'm like, there's got to be a way. I get out of jail card on this one. So she's obsessed with Bill Rancic. So I got him on the phone. So as a business owner, I find them an incredibly useful tool, obviously as Capital One does too. So anyway, next question, obviously. So you displayed a very early ability for business, right? But as the saying goes, leaders are inspired by mountaintops and matured by valleys. Mm-hmm. People look at Bill Rancic and they're like, I mean, what could go wrong? Everything he's touched has turned to gold.
Not necessarily.
Right, but so, like obstacles you've faced, when you've gotten knocked down, how did you deal with it? You know, and how did you learn that it didn't happen again?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously everyone has failures. You know, that's part of the journey, that's part of the process. It's trying not to have that same failure over and over again.
Right.
And learning from it and growing from it. But I could talk more about my failures than my successes, you know, along the way. And I think the one thing for me growing up, and this is really, I give my parents a lot of credit, for me it was okay to have mistakes, it was okay to have failures, but it was never okay not to try. And I see this next generation where everything has to be perfect, you know, the millennials, and their parents are enabling because they're saying, all right, we're going to get you the best endurance coach or pitching coach or tutors or this or that. And they're never able to stumble, they're never able to fall, and when they do have that first failure, they don't know how to deal with it. So for me, growing up and I guess having parents as educators, that was probably the best piece of advice that I'm going to take from my mom and dad and utilize with my son. You're going to fail, you're going to have mistakes, but you're going to try. And if you don't try, that's when you're going to really be in the doghouse with me. So for me, that was, I think, something that has enabled me to go out and take the risk and to take the chances that I've been able to do and be okay with not hitting a home run every single time I'm at bat.
And I suppose that's obviously very important for all of you. It's only failure if you don't get back up again. Most of the great companies in the world have failed at some point, or their founders have failed. So that being said, when somebody's starting a company, or when you start a company, you've obviously been successful in lots of different spheres. Out of the gate, what would be the first pieces of advice you would give to people when they start the company? What should they be paying attention to?
Well, I think if you're a new small business owner, you have to go into it with your eyes wide open. Because a lot of people say, I'm going to open my own business because I want to have a lot of free time and a lot of money. Because I see these, you see successful business owners, and they're at their place in New Buffalo, and they have all this time. But, overnight success for them was 20 years. So you have to realize that when you first start that business, you're going to make more sacrifices than you've probably ever made in your life. You're probably not going to have a paycheck for months or even a year or 2 years, because you're nurturing it. But you have to be realistic going in. And I always say, when you start a small business, it's like having a baby, right? I'm a dad 5 years ago, but when the baby was first born, you're up every 4 hours feeding it, you're checking on it, you're making, getting up in the middle of the night, making sure he's breathing in the crib and that everything's okay. But slowly but surely, as the baby gets older, it requires not so much of the attention or the hands-on that you have to do when you're first starting out. And that's a small business. But I think there are 3 tips that I say to every small business owner that you have to have if you want to be successful. One, you have to be agile. You have to be able to adjust, react, and adapt and change along the way. And that's the one thing I think where a lot of small business owners get in trouble. They have tunnel vision. And our world that we're living in right now is changing so fast, so rapid. The ones who can adjust and who can pivot are the ones who survive. And we saw that in the downturn, especially in the real estate market. And you went through it, I went through it. The ones who are still here today adjusted. They reacted. They said, well, wait a minute. Maybe this space can be a commercial space instead of residential. Or maybe I can, instead of making them condos, I'm going to make them rental apartments. They diverted from their plan. But so many people, they get the tunnel vision. They say, this is my business plan, and I've got to stick to it to the letter of the law. And they never divert around it. And I think that's where they get themselves into trouble. Secondly, you got to understand the term practical execution. And what that means is that actions speak louder than words. A lot of people want to become small business owners for their ego. And that's the wrong reason. Don't go out and buy the fancy desk. Don't play business owner. When we first started our cigar company, we were in a 400 square foot studio apartment. We had used desks that I got from my brother-in-law. We had a used computer. I mean, it was bare bones. And we weren't trying to play business, where a lot of people we knew who were starting out went out and bought these nice desks and they leased all this office space, and it really wasn't effective. And then lastly, you got to use all the resources that are given to you. Check your egos at the door, and don't be afraid to ask people for help. Don't be afraid to utilize the resources. And I think that's why you're all here tonight and you're tuning in tonight, because this is a resource that Capital One's providing, and your ego isn't so big that you're not going to listen and you're not going to try to make your business or your small business better. So I think those are three key things, I think, before you start out of the gate that you have to be mentally prepared to do.
Okay. So you lost me with the kid thing. I'm single and don't have any kids, but I assume it made sense to some of you guys out there. But so
he's saying that so all the single ladies
exactly,
in the room know that
totally,
he's not attached.
Totally self.
I saw that.
Totally
That works with some people, Sean.
Damn it.
I know exactly what you're doing.
All right, that failed. All right, so next question. So obviously you've been based in Chicago a lot, right? And we obviously have issues, but it's still, in my opinion, the greatest American city in lots of ways. Mm-hmm. How different is it to setting up businesses somewhere else in the country? Obviously, Capital One is based in lots of places. You travel all over the country, the world speaking now. Is it much more difficult in Chicago to build a business today than when you started?
Well, I don't know if it's more difficult. I think the landscape has changed. I think the city has gotten much larger. We're seeing it kind of keep growing, and now we're looking into Humboldt Park and further north and further west. So I think it's an exciting time to be in the city, but it's an exciting time to be in a lot of different cities. I was just talking to someone about Washington, D.C., where we just opened up an RPM Italian, and there's construction cranes as far as the eye can see. But I think, with social media, with the resources that are out there, the playing field has become a lot more level.
Right.
When I was first starting out in 1994, you had to have real revenue to get the word out, to advertise, to buy, radio commercials or television commercials, and it wasn't a level playing field. And now, with Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and all these different tools, you can be doing business virtually anywhere in the world. And if something goes viral, it's incredible the opportunities that are out there for the small business owner. So I think that there's a lot of resources like this cafe right here.
Yeah, cool.
And I'm not just saying that because I'm here, but you've got office space that you can use. You've got the ability to do banking here. The small business owner can get a 401k, which I think is great. I was so impressed, learning about that, because it's a great time to be a small business owner. It's a great time to start a small business because companies are realizing how valuable we are, and they're providing us the tools that we need to succeed. And those companies that are doing that are the ones that are succeeding, because they realize that small business isn't going away, that small business is really the lifeline, like I said, and it's the birthplace of innovation. So I think the future looks really good.
So obviously you hear all this negative stuff, but I personally believe America is still the greatest place in the world to be an entrepreneur in. Mm-hmm. So you've said the playing field, of course, is way more level than when we started out, and I would agree with you. How do you not get lost, though, with all the social media? Let's say you're not Bill Rancic, so you're not going viral. How do you stand out, right?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think a lot of people misuse social media. Yeah. There's the old saying...
Wait, are you commenting on my...
No.
Yeah, it's totally misused.
I think content is king. And, we've got this gentleman making crepes here, right? Smells delicious. I can't wait to have one when this is over. But for him, I would give him advice like, I want to know the recipe. Don't just say, hey, come in and buy my crepe. And don't just use it to try to hit people up all the time. You have to provide them with things that are going to enhance their lives. So at RPM, we don't just say, hey, come in and take your family out to dinner. We're saying, hey, if you can't come in, this is how we cook these steaks. Or this is the recipe to Mama DePandi's bucatini pomodoro. We provide them with resources that are going to make their lives better. It's not just a sales tool. And I think a lot of people misuse it. And those are the ones that don't have high interaction. They don't have people retweeting or reposting or saying, hey, check this out. When you look at like my Instagram or my Twitter, I do very little selling. It's like, hey, look at this dish. This is how you can do it at home, or how to buy a steak on a budget. If you can't come out and have a steak at our steakhouse, these are the things you look for when you're in the grocery store to buy the perfect filet or the perfect porterhouse or whatever the case may be. And that's how you gain loyalty, where the customer is going to want to come in and spend their money with you because you're actually enhancing their life.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. So we had a discussion earlier too, and obviously we commented on the fact it's really cool that Capital One is filling that space in the marketplace, because it disappeared for new businesses when the world blew up. Mm-hmm. But when you start a business, and when I first started my business, I didn't know when to take on debt or not take on debt. Obviously, you have that point you get to where you can only expand with debt, but you're scared of it. Was there a point when you started your business that you thought about taking in outside capital or taking on debt? Do you have a preference?
Well, I don't want to give anyone financial advice
obviously,
and tell them when or when not to do it. I mean, I think it's when you can support it, when the growth is there, when you realize, hey, this is working.
But you're not averse to, obviously.
No, I think one of the biggest mistakes I made early on was I didn't take on enough debt, and I didn't expand and throw that net out farther and wider. I was too conservative. I was too
Don't worry about it. I did the other.
cautious. You did the opposite. But I think had I been a little bit more open to it, I could have metaphorically caught a lot more fish in the beginning. So, you have to understand it, and I always say it's risk.
Right.
With risk, you gotta understand risk. You gotta respect risk. You gotta manage that risk, and then you gotta convert that into success. And success is a funny word, And I often wonder, why are some small business owners successful and many of them not? And that's a tough question to answer, but I think it comes down to one word, and that word is fear. And I don't know if you knew this, but when we're born into the world, we're only born with two natural fears. And it's the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. And every other fear we have is learned. And I think so many people are afraid they're going to fail. They're afraid they're going to make a mistake. They're afraid what their colleagues are going to say, that they never even try. And I got to believe that's the biggest failure of them all, not even trying. So when you take on debt, when it's time to grow, when it's time to expand, understand, again, go into it with your eyes wide open and manage that risk and respect that risk, and you'll be able to find success as a result.
They say in your 20s, you worry about what everybody thinks of you. In your 40s, you don't care what people think about you. And in your 60s, you realize nobody was actually thinking about you. So I think it's some pretty good advice. Okay,
you look great for 60, by the way.
Listen,
that's amazing.
I really stopped caring a long time ago. All those knockdown bits, I did myself. So I had another question while we're on it. So you had touched on, which I really think is a really good point. We live in the day and age of, Mark Zuckerberg, right? And I often say you have a better chance of being hit by a meteorite, and so I'm just expanding upon one of your points, than being Mark Zuckerberg. It's true. Mm-hmm. But there's lots of things you can do. Bill talks about hitting wands, which in business he was incredibly good at, and you eventually end up winning. And people want to be overnight successes, and you are in 20 years, which is the other thing you said. And I want to make sure everybody heard that, because nobody should go out there and think, I'm going to be a billionaire overnight or whatever. Do what you do really well, be the best at it, and then someday you might wake up and, wow, I did it. Odds of being Mark Zuckerberg are pretty crazy.
But I think you also can't measure success by a dollar amount.
No, obviously.
And I think that's where a lot of people, they're never happy, because I don't care how much you make, it's never going to be enough. You make $1 million, you're going to want $2 million. God, just get me to 3, and then I'm really going to be happy. And then you get to 3. God, if I could just get to 5, man, that would be something. And you're constantly chasing the tail. So I think, it's so cliche. And my mom and dad used to say this to me, and I never believed them because I wanted to chase the money. But like you gotta love it. You gotta be willing to wake up in the morning and be fired up at 5 a.m. right when it's still dark, in Chicago in the winter and it's cold, and getting in the car and going into your least tiny little office space. But you can't measure it by the dollars, and I know that's easier said than done. But so many of us, I think, we never have fulfillment if we do that. And there's always going to be someone richer.
That's right.
There's always going to be someone better looking, to the bigger house. Like you gotta.
Now he's being modest.
You gotta be grateful, and I think being a small business owner or being self-employed, it's still the American dream.
Right.
And everyone here and everyone at home watching, you know, we've got to keep that American dream alive and well, and I think that's why we're here tonight.
Right. And I made the mistake of chasing money for a long time and nearly obviously lost everything in '09 and was versatile and struggled and came back again. And it's interesting, I value freedom and my quality of life more than money, and then it actually organically happens anyway if you do something passionately. Mm-hmm. So that really is an important thing to take away. Don't chase the money.
That's right.
It's a byproduct of doing something really well.
That's right.
So that's his message. It's pretty clear. All right, let's see what else we want to ask him. Obviously, he's answered them all.
Bring it on.
Well.
Bring it on.
Wait, I saw somebody put their hand up. I didn't think we were at the question part yet, but that's enthusiastic.
Okay. Are we allowed to take questions?
No.
Go ahead. You're going to ask it anyway, so.
I'll re-ask it.
How important is the human capital component, and how do you keep the quality control? Because I found your restaurant to be outstanding.
Thank you.
I'll re-ask it.
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
And I know our failure rate.
Okay, so what the gentleman in the back was asking, obviously your restaurants are incredibly well run. Anybody who's been to an RPM, they're incredible. How do you maintain the quality? How do you keep the good human capital, as he described it? How do you keep good people? How do you train good people and not have them leave? How do you do that in a restaurant?
Well, human capital is important in any business. It's not just in a restaurant. And I think one of the things that that I learned is if you want to be successful in business, you have to have the mindset of a conductor. And when I say the conductor, I mean the conductor of an orchestra. You see, the conductor of an orchestra has all these expert musicians in his or her pit, and they play their instruments to absolute perfection. The conductor himself or herself is not an expert at playing each and every one of those instruments, but he gets them all to play in harmony with one another. And I think a lot of small business owners make the mistake of trying to play every single instrument, and they stunt their growth. So for me, I learned how to be a conductor, and with the businesses that I've gotten into, I've gotten great partners. So in the restaurant business, Juliana, my wife, said, let's open up an Italian restaurant. I'm from Italy, right? She thought I should be in the Italian restaurant business. And I thought, oh, mamma mia, this is like the worst thing we could possibly do, right? So I start going through the motions. I think one of your guys showed us some retail space up on Southport, like 40 seat restaurants. I'm just kind of buying more time for her to fall out of love with this idea, right? And then we were out to dinner with someone, and they said, you need to meet this fella, R.J. Melman. He's thinking about opening up an Italian restaurant. We got together, we kind of courted each other, and his brother Jared, and his sister Molly, and they've been in the restaurant business their whole lives, and it was a great partnership. And you know, we said, we can get people to come through the door once, but you're going to be able to have to get them to come through the door 10, 15, 20, 30 times. And you know, we've created an environment where people want to come to work. We treat our employees very well. They're our partners. You know, our employees are such a vital part of our success. And I love when people will send me a tweet saying, I was at RPM Italian tonight, you know, Tom was my server, he was spectacular. They're actually calling out the server by name. The fact that they remember that server's name speaks volumes to me. So we want to make sure that it's a fun environment, it's a well-structured environment, that they're well taken care of, and that they want to come back. And that's really important. Our people are so vital. We have such low turnover, you know, knock on wood, and we value them. And I think that's the other important thing. You know, you can't, when you have that conductor mindset, you realize that you cannot do it alone. And you value your people, I think, a lot more than the guy who's said, I've been doing this 20 years, I know what I'm doing, I've made a few bucks, don't tell me how to run this business, and they think they can do it alone. And they never do. You know, they wind up here.
So there's no silver bullet, obviously, when you start a business, as Bill has pointed out. But if you had 3 must-dos for people when they start a business, right, what they should do. It can, I suppose, be anything, but if you were going to start a business in the morning.
It's funny, you know, over the last 14 years or so, I've been pretty lucky, and I've gotten to meet some of the best entrepreneurs our generation has ever seen. I mean, you name it. I've met them, I've spent some time with them, and I realized that they all have 3 traits that I try to emulate. Their personalities are all different, but they all have 3 identical traits that I try to emulate. And the first one is they're all good decision makers. Now, this may seem basic to some of you, but most people go through life and they have a very difficult time making decisions in a timely manner, and they let opportunities pass them by. I always say they have 1 foot on the boat and 1 foot on the pier, and they don't know whether to go to sea or they don't know whether to go to land. And at the end of their careers, they look back and they have tremendous regret because they never got anywhere. So I think you have to be able to arm yourselves with knowledge and make decisions and do it in a timely manner so you can take advantage of those opportunities before they pass you by. Secondly, you've got to find creative ways to market yourself, market your small business, get the word out. And you don't necessarily have to spend $1 million. You know, when I first started the cigar company, I had written letters, kind of a crazy story. I'd written a letter explaining how this Cigar of the Month Club worked, and at the end of the letter I asked for help. And I put the letter in a box, and I put inside the box a pair of these thick Coke bottle nerd glasses that you might wear on Halloween. And the note read, "Please take a closer look at my business idea." And I put the glasses on top of the letter, and I sent these boxes out, and I sent them to all the morning radio stations, all the morning radio shows here in Chicago. And a week after those packages went out, I got a call from the producer of the #1 morning drive radio show here back in 1994. And she said, "Jonathan Brandmeier will have you on his show for 5 minutes." She said, "Make your 5 minutes count." And I went in the studio and I met this Brandmeier guy, and we hit it off, and he had me on for like a half an hour at the heart of morning rush hour and just totally lit up our telephones. And I'll never forget that because he gave me a shot, and I had 150,000 listeners listening that morning, and we picked up like 500 memberships to the Cigar of the Month Club just from that one interview. But I didn't have to spend a lot of money. I found a creative way to get my message out. So it's about being a good decision maker. It's about being creative. And I think lastly, it's that never quit, never make excuse mindset. And I see it a lot today, again, with the millennials. The minute times get tough, this is what they do. They point to their left and they point to their right, and they blame everyone and everything around them. We had a really bad winter, or, you know, whatever. I could come up with a million excuses that they come up with. But the ones who are in that rare air, these entrepreneurs that I've had the chance to meet and spend time with, they don't do this. They do this. And they point the finger at themselves because they realize at the end of their journey, there's no one else to blame for their success or for their failure other than themselves.
So I think that kind of evokes that wonderful Teddy Roosevelt quote, "The credit belongs to the man who is in the arena." So you guys are obviously, a lot of you are in the arena or considering getting into it. Rather be in there and have lost or won, as opposed to sit in the stands and watch people. So,
speaking of the arena, this young man here wants to come up and ask a question, so I figure we'll bring him up. Is that okay, guys?
He's in the arena.
How about giving this guy a round of applause? Dude, that takes some courage, man. You want to talk into the microphone? Tell us your name.
My name is John Paul.
What's up, John Paul? What's your question?
Is there ever a point where a small business becomes a big business, and what do you count as a big business?
Good question.
Great question. Awesome. Thank you, John Paul. All right. Well, I think ideally your goal, John, is when you start your small business, you want to make it a big business. In most cases. I mean, I think that's the intention, that's the goal when you're first starting out. So, you know, as I mentioned earlier, when you look at some of the big businesses that are out there today, I mean, I can go on and on, from Nordstrom's to Walmart to Apple. Walmart started out on Main Street as a 5 and dime. Steve Jobs started in a garage. So, yes, you want to take a small business. Not everybody. Some people are happy with the small business and maintaining that lifestyle, but I think the majority of small business owners hope to take it and make it a big business. And I think by definition, small businesses, 50 employees or less. I mean, there's a whole technical definition. It's a certain revenue number and below, which qualifies you as a small business owner. And hopefully you're going to be a big business owner one day, and I'm going to be one of your shareholders. So best of luck to you, buddy.
And I would say everybody in the room here wants to be a big business owner, probably something, generally speaking. So it was a good question.
Yeah, very good. And it took a lot of courage for this young. How old are you? That's pretty cool, man. Well, thanks for asking the question.
Shall we continue? Or?
Does anyone else have any questions? Yes, ma'am? She's going to hand you a microphone here.
So I'm a mental health professional, and where we struggle with social media is marketing ourselves because we are a person and we are a service and not a product. Mm-hmm. Do you have any feedback as to how to maybe go about that, or
well, I think
any ideas?
Mental health is obviously a big deal. And you know, I'm glad to see a lot of people are speaking up about mental health. Brandon Marshall, who used to play for the Bears here, he's now at the Jets, he's a big advocate of it. I think people are realizing that they need to take care of their mental health. And a lot more high-profile people are coming out and saying, hey, you know, if I needed a kidney transplant, I'd get a kidney transplant. So the stigma with mental health, I think, is being diminished, thankfully. And people are realizing that they have to take care of it just like they would any other ailment. But I think for you, using social media for tips on maybe how to avoid anxiety or how to prepare for a stressful event, or, you know, if you have to give a public speech, you know, which a lot of people do in business, how to overcome those fears. So I think giving tips and giving advice and going on radio shows. A friend of mine who I met on the Steve Harvey show, he goes on, Steve Harvey, he's on WGN, and he's a mental health professional, and it's done incredibly fabulous things for his practice, because he goes on and he gives tips on, he's more in like teenage, you know, mental health and giving advice to parents. But he went out and said, I'm going to, you know, utilize my expertise and my knowledge, and I'm going to help people. And as a byproduct, his practice, you can't get an appointment with him now because he's so busy. But, you know, there's so many shows and so many radio shows and articles where they're looking for an expert in that area. Because it's becoming more and more acceptable to talk about it, I think you could use your social media platforms to help people. And little, depending on what area you specialize in, everybody needs, you know, we all need it. I know Sean and I probably do. We could all use, you know, ways to cope with stress and anxiety, because it helps us in business.
No, thank you.
And it helps us make better decisions. And I think a lot of small business owners, especially, we tend to catastrophize things in our mind. And I always say to people, you know, and I'm not a mental health professional, so my advice is essentially worthless. But I always say, you know, you take a pen to paper and you write out worst case scenarios, and they're never nearly as bad as those scenarios played out in your mind. But probably having you give those types of
sure, yeah, we base that off of like fact versus feeling, you know. Mm-hmm. So like little tips like that.
Yeah,
I could see.
Yep.
I could.
And that's how you grow your following, because then I'll say, hey, Sean, you know, check out Jane, Dr. Jane, you know, whatever, at Dr. Jane. She's got great tips, and then he'll pass it on, and your following slowly grows, or hopefully quickly grows, because you're providing real content that we can utilize and better ourselves.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yes, in the front row here.
Hi. So a lot of people going into business typically start by themselves, and at some point, if you want to grow your business for it to become scalable, you need to add business partners or grow your team. What type of advice or what kind of advice do you have on being a good business partner to attract people to your team?
Well, it's funny. One of my business partners, and Sean, he has a great saying, and I'm probably going to butcher it, and he's been in business for a long time, 45 years, very successful guy. He says, when a good person and a bad person get together, it's impossible to do a good deal. But when two good people get together, it's impossible to do a bad deal. So you got to really court, when you're getting into business, someone, you got to, it's a marriage. So put the time in up front and understand every aspect of it. And two, you got to know your role. Everybody has to stay in their own lane. And you know, when you're in a business, it's much like a band, right? You can typically only have one lead singer. And that's where a lot of people have trouble, because maybe you're the front woman of the company and you're out there on CNBC, and your partners who are busting their hump back in the office, they don't get any of the glory. But that has to be decided up front. You know what I mean? So you may be the front person, and they're, you know, kind of doing some of the operational stuff. But if everyone knows their role and they stay in their lane and they check their egos at the door, that's a perfect plan, because everyone should have a certain expertise. You know, if you and you decide to get into business with Sean and you both bring the same skill sets to the table, it's kind of a redundancy, and there's no need for that. But if you're a great salesperson and you need a great operations manager or someone who can handle depending on what business it is, you know, that skill set, an engineer, that's the kind of partner you want. You want, you know, someone who is totally different, can bring something totally different to the table than you can bring. But I think laying it all out on that front end and really courting them, and you've had a lot of business partners, Sean, you could probably add to this.
I would expand upon it a little bit. The most difficult, stressful times I've ever had in my life was having bad business partners, because there's the old expression, you can't tell a champion how they behave when they're winning. You can tell a champion how they behave when they get knocked down. Well, multiply that by 10 for partners. Everybody's great when you're winning, but you're in the same life raft. You have to be able to fall asleep at night and not worry that they're going to throw you overboard and eat all your chocolate. And a bad partner drags you down because you're in the same life raft. So you ask all those really difficult questions up front that make you feel awkward, because better know it up front and never have to visit again than suddenly realize when you're in the heat of battle that these people are not going to stand beside you. But a good partner is worth their weight in gold.
No doubt about it. Any other questions? Yes, sir? I think we'll get a microphone over here.
Microphone?
Is that okay? Here.
Thank you. I hope this isn't redundant from the last question, but when hiring people and doing the hiring process, what key indicators or personality traits do you look for that help you keep with your company culture?
Well, I think one of the things I look for is someone who's willing to learn. And you know, you see a lot of these new college grads. My nephew's here; he's in college, Luke. And some of the advice, hey, Luke.
And he stayed the whole way through. Good
yeah, good man. He's going to get extra credit. But you know, a lot of people are going to come into this interview and they're going to tell you what they think you want to hear, and they're going to try to puff up their expertise or their knowledge. I want someone who's going to say, I'm going to work harder than everyone in the room. I may not be the smartest guy here, but I'm going to be willing to work the hardest. That's what I look for. I want someone who understands and knows what they don't know, because that takes, I think, a lot more maturity than someone who's going to come in and just tell you all the right answers. I can go into an interview and you go online and you know you can find out all the answers and everything that these people want to hear. To me, that is of no interest whatsoever. So I think that's important, and I think also in the interviewing process, take your time, get them out of the office, go to lunch. See how they act. I think it was IBM. This is many, many years ago. And they were interviewing for a top level position. And 3 candidates, they were identically matched. You know, same Ivy League education, same work experience. I mean, they were all identically matched. They took the 3 of them out to dinner. 2 of the 3 candidates salted their food before they tasted it. They didn't get hired. The guy who tasted the food first and then salted it got hired. And in their interviewing process, that said a lot about that person, that they were willing to make assumptions before they even tried it. How do you know that that chef didn't oversalt that food? So getting them out of the office, getting them in their comfort zone where they can kind of relax, you know, lunch, a dinner, whatever, round of golf, whatever the case may be, that's, I think, when the true colors come out. And I think it was Maya Angelou who once said, when someone shows you their true colors, believe them. And in the interview process, when you see the true colors, don't try to talk yourself into hiring that person because you're in a jam and you need the employee. When those true colors come out, you believe them. Anyone else? Anyone on Twitter asking questions?
Oh yeah, why don't I pay attention to Twitter? Sorry
we
about
got anything over there, Mr. Moderator?
How is that for moderating? Okay. What has surprised you most about being an entrepreneur over the years?
What surprised me the most about being an entrepreneur over the years? I think what surprised me, what I enjoyed the most is the diversity. You know, I think a lot of entrepreneurs like being able to do a lot of different things.
Right.
And for me, I always joke that, you know, my attention span is limited. So I like to have a lot of different things going on, and it keeps me excited and it keeps me going. But I like the challenge, and I like the ability to help people. And I think when you're an entrepreneur and when you've been able to achieve a certain level of success, you have to be a good steward with the gifts that you've been given. And I've fortunately had a little bit of success, and I've been able to utilize the platform that I've been given and some of the success and try to help people along the way. And I think that's ultimately what it's all about. And we always try to build people up rather than tear people down. And when you come and work for us, you're going to leave hopefully better than when you came in, no matter where it's at. And that's the environment that I try to create. But for me, that's, I think, what surprised me the most, that I've enjoyed the most, is being able to utilize that platform and try to make a little impact.
I think the takeaway from that, of course, is Bill is incredibly positive, and in a world that can be very negative, you have to be positive. What I would say has surprised me most is that you have no idea how close you are to winning. Because you can, if you get knocked down and go home to bed, you might get up in the morning and your world change. So for every bad surprise you get, at some point you're going to get that surprise where you realize, wow, I just broke through. So there are a lot of good surprises in the business.
Well, and I think you brought up a good point, and you have to be careful about the people you surround yourself with. Because when you're starting out, when you're starting to achieve great things as a small business owner, there's always going to be those people who wish they had your drive, your ambition, your work ethic, but they don't. So they try to pull you down in order to build themselves up. And it may be people who are closer to you than you think, because they think, he's going to become successful and he's going to change, or he's going to, not going to want to be with me anymore. And you have to just be aware of what their intentions are. And when you're aware of what their intentions are, you negate their power. And when you're climbing up and when you're soaring in your business, just be very careful about the people that you surround yourself with. I'm not trying to be negative, but you have to be.
Negative. It's great advice, because the most dangerous thing in the world is jealousy. People will harm themselves to harm you. Mm-hmm. So ignore all that negativity. Keep your eye on the finish line. All right, another Twitter question. What is something you know now that you wish you knew back when you were first getting started?
Oh my goodness, a lot.
If you found questions on Twitter, you guys better buck up.
I mean, what is one thing that I learned now? I think, and I touched on it briefly, that you can't do it alone. I think when I was first starting out, it really stunted my growth, because I thought I knew it all, because I had a little bit of success early on, my partner and I, and we didn't bring in the right people. We didn't want to invest in people. And I think had we done that, we could have achieved much greater success. So I didn't think big enough. I didn't believe how important human capital was. And today, I've done a 180. And I know that I can't do it alone. I know the only way I'm going to succeed is with the right partners, like with RPM. RPM, just for those of you who don't know, is the restaurant group that I'm a co-owner of, and it stands for the three owners, Rancic, Saltis, and Melman. And they're great partners. Doug Saltis is a fantastic chef from New York City. He's got an amazing pedigree. He creates all these amazing dishes on the menu that we get to eat at all the time. And then M is Melman, and they're part of the Let Us Entertain You family. And they've created hundreds and hundreds of successful restaurants. And they're amazing partners. In the real estate business, I have great partners who have helped me, from Conlin and Company, who sells properties or leases them, to Westcon Builders, the guy who does a lot of the renovation for us. And these are people who, we can trust and we can count on. And we rise, when the tide is high, all the boats rise. And that's what I like with the right partnerships, because we all look for that high tide.
And I would say to that, we all know the expression, everything happens for a reason. What I wish I'd known was the hard part was waiting to see what that reason was. It just takes a little bit longer. But everything does happen for a reason.
I think we've got a question right here.
Oh.
Hi.
Hi.
As an entrepreneur, someone who doesn't have the connections that you might have had, that you may have, but we have an amazing product, and the passion that you speak about.
Well, what is it? This is your time to self-promote.
Yeah, start there.
Lesson number one right here.
Oh my God, did you set me up?
I'm all about it.
Well, actually, we're at this mall, and we sell O-bags, which is an Italian handbag. Which
Can we get a close-up of that?
This is actually a gift for Juliana.
Oh my God, I like it. Do I have to tell her it's a gift, or can I say I brought this home from my road trip, honey?
And every part
I don't
of the
get a
bag is
handbag.
customizable.
Come on over here.
It's been in Italy since 2009, so I'm carrying one of these bags, and it's a component system.
We're actually 3 doors down on this side of the street.
So
Here we go.
if Juliana wanted
That
to
wasn't my
put
question.
a white handle on here, it's a component system.
Wow.
So this was designed by Italian engineers.
And I'll answer your
the
question when
company
she's done.
is out
It's okay.
of Padova.
We're sisters.
Padova.
Let me actually tell the story a little bit.
Yeah, come on up here. Come on up here.
This is my older sister who always takes over.
Why did you have to say she's older?
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
She's always trying
Clearly.
to take me down, like you said.
No, we actually love New City. This is an amazing mall, and we actually traveled to Italy ourselves.
Are you Italian?
Well, I married an Italian.
Okay, that's close
Spallone.
enough. So did I.
No, I'm Irish.
Okay.
We're Irish.
But that's okay.
But we actually went to Italy ourselves, and we actually saw Pope Francis that day, and we went shopping later that day, and we bought our own O-bags. The O-bag product is actually in 50 countries, but we're one of like 4 or 5 stores in all of U.S., and we did a ton of research. I used to be an SVP of a marketing and media company, but when we decided to open at New City, we wanted to be on the street level. We were thinking of Michigan Avenue, but we really did a ton of research.
That's a big rent check there.
Yes.
Yeah. But we wanted to be at an environment like this. We wanted to be closer to an Apple store. But we've invested our own money, and we're undercapitalized right now. But the product is going crazy. People are calling us from all over the country. There's only 2 stores in Boston, 1 in Miami.
ostoreshop.com.
Yeah, right.
Does this
right.
go to you directly, or?
Yeah, well, the Italians own the rights to the online products. They won't let us.
Well, then call them.
Right.
Because that's not going to put money in their pocket.
Right. But we haven't paid ourselves in 6 months because
1457 North Halstead Street.
Oh my God.
3 doors down.
Yeah.
But my question really is that if we don't have the right partnerships or the right capital, and we actually, how do we get that, and how do we navigate that? We actually have we've had.
Well, you're in the right place. I mean, we're Capital One.
I come here multiple times a week, actually, and I love Capital One. We come here all the time. But how do we, the right people, and you've gotten that.
But I didn't always.
Leverage, right? And we don't always either. But we have
we have the passion, we have the drive, we're entrepreneurs.
We work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. We wake up.
Have you found creative ways to get this in the hands of, for example, celebrities?
Just right now, yes.
Okay,
Why do you think we're here?
That's a stretch.
Yes, we have. We actually have.
I don't consider myself a celebrity. I'm saying
Juliana.
I'm out of here. Is that what it's come down to?
We actually have. Yes, we do a lot of things.
Okay.
Yes.
Before you keep digging yourselves in a hole here, let me.
You are winning.
That's true. No, but I think getting in the hands of influencers, I think, is so important. We talk about this next generation of the way people consume media, and a young lady who works for my wife, City Fashion. She's online. She's like a blogger. She promotes all these great things. Having like a blogger party at your store.
Yeah, we just had somebody.
Maybe
I was booking somebody.
maybe Data Kardashian.
Yeah.
Data Kardashian. Yes.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
I'd rather Juliana.
Just trying to be
Well, maybe Juliana, but I mean, it looks like a great product. What about also Home Shopping Network? You can sell a lot of these, but
Right.
you don't own the intellectual property. So
We don't.
That's my only concern here. So
lot
you're
of-
more in the retail
Correct.
business selling. Do you have other products that you sell in your store?
Not yet.
There's a chain of things. There's like the necklaces.
Is it
there's
all
the
O-
shoes. It's all
O-bag.
O. It's
So-
like EVA. It's an eco-friendly foam rubber.
Okay.
So it's
What's the retail price?
45. It's a component, so 45 for the bag. These handles are 25, and then this trim is
25
60.
each?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this bag 130.
Okay,
This
got
bag is
it.
130.
Got it.
But
That's what I was
everything
looking
is
for.
customizable. We have backpacks, we have watches, we have bracelets. It's an amazing product line, and it's.
Have you set up shop in here? For example, no, but like the crepe guy. I don't even know the name of his company. What's the name of your company? It's amazing.
I think the girls have come on.
Have you a Capital One Spark account?
Pardon?
A Capital One Spark business account?
I do have a Capital One
Great.
account.
Good.
Not Spark
Okay,
account.
we're okay.
No, but yeah, we're good. But I think there's a lot of ways that you're doing the right thing. You're getting it in the
We've done
hands.
festivals. We did Fashion Fest. We're actually.
You just had your own show. You just got it.
Yeah.
I know, but like.
Festivals, I think, are okay. I
Yeah.
don't know if this is the right product for a festival. I like getting it more because you could do a tremendous business. Can you do online business, or do they control all of it?
The Italians
Yes.
are
Makes
very.
them sound like
I'm married to one.
the Italians control
Watch
all of
yourself.
that racket in Chicago.
We have some workarounds, but they have online. They
So you
own
can't
it.
drive people. So if you go out and you get on Good Morning America with this,
We
it
can drive
doesn't.
them to a static website that directs them to the store and to the contact,
But
but
you-
not.
not
for
online.
We're independent.
Not
Well, I
for-
think
we need to
what-
renegotiate your deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
it's anybody. It's
Well, I think what you've done tonight has worked really well,
Yeah.
right? You've
Yeah.
introduced
Would anyone
yourself
like to
good
buy an
audience.
OBAG here?
well, we were very fast and furious. We saw the vision of what is going on with OBAG. Okay, so like we were the third store in all of US to open, and we got here. We beat New York, LA, Las Vegas, everywhere.
Here's my question. So say I go home, I bring this to Juliana tonight, and then she tweets it out to her 10 million followers. It's not going to benefit you.
No, because they're going
Because
to
they're
go
going to go, they're
online.
going to Google OBAG, and they're going to
Right.
get driven to the site where they're going to just, people
Therein
want
lies our
to,
frustration.
I want to have this tomorrow, but I live in
So-
Seattle, or I
well,
live
they
in,
have to call the Chicago store. And
Obviously,
ship it
that's
to 'em.
something you
Right.
have to
But
sleep
that's,
on a little bit.
that's going to be, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm trying to,
I know.
We're on Instagram, we
Hang
have our
on.
Facebook.
Great,
Yeah.
okay, good.
We're good with social media. We do the promotion for the Father's Day, for 4th of July. We're all
Okay.
white
But we're
blue.
like in a silo.
we got to
And
get
it
out
will
of
be
that
a
silo.
wonderful segue this into a question that kind of...
Okay, go.
Anyway,
No.
that was.
Okay, I'm going to give this to Juliana. I'm sure she's going to love it. Thank you, ladies, for the gift.
She can change
Appreciate
it.
it.
Thanks for
No,
bringing
no,
us up
thank
here.
you.
That was
Thank
totally
you.
what I wanted. but
Thank you. No, I will give it to her. Your card's in here, I assume?
All right, one more.
Thank you.
All right, we're
Yes.
going to do one more question. Oh, we got one in the back here, and maybe we'll do two quick ones. All right, microphone. Nice bag, Bill.
Thank you.
So going to a service business now in the service economy,
Yep.
once you successfully provide that service, so you start a business, you're providing a service, you're successful at it, it grows to a certain point. Once you're doing that very well, it's based on the experience and the personal relationship that your customers have with you, kind of like. So now, from that point, how do you grow that service business without losing the personalized attention that your customers are used to receiving, and or trying to quantify and replicate that personal experience when you can't be in every place that is necessarily providing your service under your umbrella?
Could I ask what the business is?
For me, it's fitness and martial arts.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty specialized. Again, it comes down to the gentleman in the back. It comes down to human capital. And it comes down to your training programs, you providing them with a strict guideline of exactly how you do it, almost like Ray Kroc. You know, Ray Kroc was a stickler. And every McDonald's, whether you like it or not, he ran a very tight regime. And you could go to a McDonald's in Chicago, a McDonald's in Philadelphia, and it was the exact same experience. The fries tasted the same, the cheeseburger, the amount of ice cubes in the cup. I mean, it was all done in a very regimented style. And you have to be able to find the right people who subscribe to your mindset, who are going to be able to treat the customers the same way that you're going to be treating them. And then I think you also have to expand into other services. So I think once you have that customer and once you have their trust and they like what you're doing, maybe you start providing meal delivery, whatever the case may be. And I don't know your business, but I think a great example of this is that health club called the East Bank Club. And it's a beautiful health club, and it started out as a health club. Now you go there, you can have your dry cleaning done, you can have your car washed, you can get your, a massage. Basically, you don't ever have to leave that building. You can have a meal. They got the customer in, the customer liked the experience, and they started to expand into different areas to monetize that membership base.
The community they built.
The community that they built, right? And I think that's a great local example here in Chicago of someone who was able to really do an incredible job with monetizing that community. So as a martial arts, health and fitness is so important. Maybe you tie in with a chiropractor and he becomes, you bring him in and he's doing whatever the case may be, adjustments, stretching, and you're partnering with him in that area because you've got the people, you've got the trust. You got to make sure you have someone that you're going to bring in that's going to provide that same service and that same quality. But expanding into other areas and being able to monetize that loyal base of customers that you have, I think, is vital. Right? You did the same thing with your business.
Yeah, but I'm going to expand on that just really quickly. I had an employee called Danielle who was a ex-Rockette, and her friend and her JC decided, first she said, I want to do something I'm passionate about. I said, you should. And then she said, dancing. I'm like, yeah, well, that's not really going to work. But what they did was, like you said, community-based. They
way to build people up, Sean.
I like that. Community around. Yeah, no, I wasn't very motivating, but built up a sense of community within the things. It's like called Jane Do, and I think they're heading for their 4th studio. But they hired all ex-Rockettes. So let's say you train somewhere very special, hire people from that same, martial arts school, and that gives you an edge. Mm-hmm. That would be something that would set you apart.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That helps a lot.
Uh-oh. We was the last one. Okay, great.
Sorry.
Second last one, I think.
First, thank you for doing this.
Oh my God, it's my pleasure.
No, this is really helpful. I have a somewhat 2-part question. The first is that you're one of the few people that's had the opportunity to work for our current president. Can you give us insight into that experience?
I guess it's like a White House briefing question.
And then,
2 parts.
well, 2 more broadly.
I'm not involved in any of these questions.
Well, more broadly, do you have any advice on working with difficult people or people that may not listen? Or no, just not necessarily.
That's getting answered.
Just in general, like if someone's not as open, like
not related to the first question.
My client's
not related to the first question.
Listen, I had a great experience, and we're not here to talk about politics. We don't want to. No one wants to talk about politics tonight. This is about small business, and we'll stick on that. But I think, in any environment you work in, there's going to be people that you like, and there's going to be people that you don't like. But there's an old saying, if you want to achieve success, you have to sometimes fish with the other guy's bait, and you have to fish where those fish are. And again, there's going to be people you like, customers that you don't like. But if you want to find success, you better figure out a way to work with those customers, because at the end of the day, your customer, 99.9% of the time, is always right. And I think, again, it comes back to agility and adaptability. And the way, it's funny, my son, he's 4.5, and he travels a lot. Because my wife and I were on the road a lot. We travel, we bring him with us everywhere. And we were very concerned because we said, 3 months he's here, 2 months he's there, and is this kid going to have problems? And this great pediatrician here in Chicago says you're actually giving him probably the best gift you can give, and that's adaptability. And he said, I found that the most successful people in this world are those who are adaptable. Am I right? Were you guys having the same? Yeah, so I think you have to be able to adapt and adjust and react, whether you like certain people or whether you don't.
I actually think she was teaching him some lesson or something. Obviously, she was right about something she said yesterday. All right, this lady, last question. Just quickly, yes? No, you yes? Yeah. Quickly, just quickly. I'll make it real quick.
Yeah.
So I guess my question kind of ties into a couple of things that have been talked about throughout the night. But there's been a discussion about human capital and how to leverage that and how to use it to your benefit. What do you do, though, based on kind of the discussion that was going on over here, if you're growing that business or you're adding that next piece to it, how do you decide or how do you determine if you're at a place where essentially, I guess it's back to that debt thing, you take a loss to bring more people in hopes that it takes you to the next place? And it's sort of, how do you have that?
Well, the numbers don't lie, right? So you're going to know it's going to come down to basic arithmetic. And you're going to know that, okay, if I add on 6 more people for the first 6 months, I'm going to sustain a loss. But based on knowledge, right? Because in business, we don't make decisions based on emotion. We make decisions based on knowledge. And based on the knowledge and the history that I have with this business, I'm pretty much going to be able to determine the 12-month, the 18-month, the 24-month plan. So before you take that on and you say, I'm going to take a loss, you pretty much, again, God forbid there's a catastrophic event or whatever things that we cannot control happen, but you should make those decisions strictly based on numbers. And go ahead.
How do you do that, though, when you're, for example, the way you were speaking over here, and you're like, you go partner with chiropractors, so you bring in some new aspect.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go ahead and take that risk.
Well, I think, but you try to mitigate your risk. Okay, so if I were this young woman who had the martial arts company, I would start talking to my customers. Hey, what do you need? You know, it's like I get after my hour and a half session, you know, my hamstrings are tight, my hips are tight, like, you know, and you find out what the needs are, and then you fill that need. And it's like, okay, well, we're going to also have this physical therapist come in, and for $90, she's going to stretch you out once a week, and you're going to feel like $1 million, right? Or whatever the case may be. So I think you can't just start throwing darts. Like, you have to, and I tell this to Juliana, my wife, like, we make decisions based on knowledge, not emotion. And a lot of small business owners, they just react. And that's when you get yourself into trouble. So, you know, she's going to talk to her customers, her members, or whatever the clients, and find out, you know, what other needs that she can fill, because they trust her. They would love working with her. That she's probably got a multiple year relationship with these people, and they know that if she's bringing something to the table, that it's been vetted, that it's been, you know, done right. Just like in our business, we had an Italian restaurant. People kept coming in. They said, "Man, we like the Italian food, but these steaks are unbelievable." And we had a great steak purveyor who was helping us, and we kind of said, well, wow, we're looking at the numbers, and we're selling a lot of steaks at an Italian restaurant, where we thought it was just going to be an add-on for those people who didn't want pasta, or maybe you sell a handful a night. And when you start printing the reports, it warranted that we invest a tremendous amount of money in a steakhouse. And, you know, we have a new concept that I think we're going to be launching based on knowledge. You know, we've tested things out in the menu. We're like, wow, there's a real need for this. So we're going to open up this next RPM, and it's going to be something completely different.
And then I'm going to confuse you and say fortune favors the brave. So if you feel you can do it, go for it. Coming from the guy with $100 million on the street in 2008. So maybe don't listen to me. Yeah. All right, guys, listen. Thank you very much. And I'd like a big round of applause.
Thank you guys for coming. Thank you, Capital One, Spark.
And yes, Capital One, Spark Business. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, everyone at home who live streamed this.
Thank you, guys.
You can feel free, if your question wasn't asked tonight, you can just tweet me at Bill Rancic or at the real Sean Conlon, and we'll be happy to
Thank you,
answer
guys.
any questions you have.
And one takeaway I have to say, the adaptability, we saw it here tonight. So thank you guys so much for your time. Really appreciate you being here. And folks, please stick around. We do have some refreshments and activities planned, so I would love for you to have the opportunity to network and mingle. If you want to watch this again, feel free to go to sparktalk.fora.tv. And otherwise, if you want to learn more about Capital One Spark Business, I have a host of folks over there who would love to talk to you, so look for their name tags. We see these logos everywhere. Thanks again for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
guys.
everybody. Thank you all
Very much.
Thanks, guys.